Welcome to the Voodoo Power Podcast.
Welcome to Plates and Pancakes. You're sitting down today with Monte Sparkman. Coach Sparkman is the Director of Athletic Performance at Colleyville-Heritage High School in Colleyville, Texas. Prior to his arrival at Colleyville-Heritage, he had stops in Richland, Burkburnett, the Virginia Military Institute, and was an intern at the University of North Texas. In 2018, Sparkman was recognized by the National High School Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association as the South Region Coach of the Year. He has a CSCS, he is a certified club coach and sports performance coach through USA Weightlifting, and a certified level 2 coach through USA Track and Field. Coach Sparkman is a graduate of Baker University, and he is an accomplished powerlifter with a 2,200-pound total and an amazing 1,000-pound squat. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Dude, that's really good. You nailed it.
Well, I looked really hard, and I had a little bit of help from you this week, and so hopefully I put it together and it was correct.
No, that was good. That was good.
So how did you end up at Baker? I'll start out with that because Baker's not very far from me.
Yeah, no, man, that's a great story. I guess it's not really great, but it's a story. They had a coach on staff from Texas named Chaz Williams, and somehow he found my best friend from high school, our tape, and we went up there and went on a visit. I stayed all 4 years. He ended up coming back. But it was one of those deals where, we didn't have a ton of success in high school, and Baker, was an accomplished NAIA program. They were orange and black. We were orange and black. It was smaller. That's kind of where I wanted to go, being from a smaller town. Their high school mascot was the Bulldogs, and we were the Burkburnett Bulldogs, so I just felt like there were too many similarities not to go up there. And really grateful for my time at Baker. I'll say that I really didn't appreciate being up there while I was up there. One of those deals where I wanted to get back and get to Texas and start coaching and doing that. But looking back, man, the friendships and the experiences that we had was really, really good. And I'm grateful for my time at Baker. It was a great place.
So did you enjoy the Kansas City area while you were up here? It's a little bit different in Texas.
No, it is. And I'll say this, man, I was in Kansas City about a month ago, and I really enjoyed Kansas City. Of course, we had a lot of fun in Lawrence. We had a lot of fun in Manhattan. And, but Kansas City, it's a big city, but it to me, it doesn't have the big city feel. It's pretty spread out, and, there's a lot to do there. And, we had a lot of fun in Kansas City. And of course, the barbecue is really, really good too, I really enjoyed Kansas City.
So on top of other coincidences, as I was researching, me and you talked about it a little bit this week, you're from Burkburnett. I spent a lot of time in Burkburnett as a kid. What was it like going back and coaching somewhere that you graduated from?
First off, it's unreal that you actually have ties to Burkburnett. It's such a small town. So what was it like coaching in my hometown? That was kind of my end goal. Coming back from Baker, I wanted to be the powerlifting coach and D-line coach at Burkburnett High School, and that was going to be my end all be all. And, being back there, for that 1 year was really, really good. Just being able to make an impact in my hometown, coach some tremendous kids, work with some tremendous coaches and teachers, and feel like you were giving back, was really, really good. And so, grateful for my time, there. There's a part of me that would like to go back at some point, but that's probably not in the cards. But yeah, man, just really, really enjoyed Burke, and Burke has a special place in my heart. And, I'll always be orange and black.
I heard it's grown quite a bit. I haven't been there since I was a kid, but my grandma and grandpa still have ties down there to some people and some friends, and they said it's grown quite a bit as it kind of developed.
It doesn't feel that way to me, it doesn't feel that way to me, but the cool thing about Burke is everybody knows everybody, and a lot of really, really special people there. And so, it's a place I'll always call home.
Now, Wichita Falls is just right there. And Mark Ripeto's from Wichita Falls, accomplished powerlifter. Was there any crossover or influence from him in what you do?
So, Rip is Rip. And, he's one of those polarizing figures in our industry. And I'll be completely honest, our paths didn't really cross much. I was grateful when I worked in Midwestern State to kind of befriend some of the Olympic lifters who were there. And so they trained under Rip and they trained under Glenn Penlay. And so we got to spend time together, hanging out or whatever. But there's one Rip story I do have, and that was, I don't remember when exactly it was, but Glenn had just gotten back from Westside. And he was showing me all these different good mornings and single leg good mornings. And, in powerlifting, dropping the bar is kind of taboo. It's not something you do, but we were at, Rip's place, WFAC. And I had a bar on my back, and Glenn was showing me, these different good morning variations. And then I'm in an Olympic gym, right? So I dropped the bar. Well, the weight, the rubber had split, and there was a metal ring inside of it. And that metal ring had cut the brand new turf that Rip had just put down in a gym. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but he wasn't very happy. But really, that's my only Rip story. Our paths, didn't really intersect. And we trained in Burkburnett. I was fortunate to have a really good close friend, Mike Askew, who kind of got me into powerlifting, and he had a gym. And so that's where we trained. And, I just was able to hang out, like I said, with some of those weightlifters and Glenn. But that was, outside of the gym. We never trained together or anything like that. But so that's kind of my Rip story. That's my one story, But Rip's one of those guys you either love him or hate him, and I'll be, transparent. I don't have anything negative to say about the man. He obviously knows what he's doing and has earned the right to have an opinion. It's not for me to say, that he's right or wrong. So, obviously, respect who he is and what he's done, but other than that, like I said, there's been minimal contact, I guess.
So what pushed you into multiply as opposed to raw?
So, we got started in 2000, and that was still kind of the heyday of geared powerlifting. And we started in NASA, and that was single ply. And, truthfully, it was one of those deals where we had kind of had a lot of success in NASA, and it just made sense that the next step was to start adding layers. And so we went from NASA to USPF to APF, and APF Texas back in the mid 2000s, man, that was really the federation. And that, there were a lot of really, really big time lifters. Jason Coker was in there, Mike McDaniel, and of course our crew. There's a great group in Dallas that we would train with. And man, we just had a lot of fun going to meets, and that was just kind of the evolution was, raw lifting wasn't really a thing back then. It was, the biggest lifts were being done in multiply, and that was where the attention was. And so that's, where we wanted to compete. And of course, in 2006, we get to go to APF Senior Nationals, which at the time was the biggest meet in Vegas. And that was a lot of fun. And, that was the first time that, you get to see Lou and Becca Swanson and all of these larger than life Chuck, all these larger than life individuals. And, so that's just kind of where it went. And, it just seemed like, a natural thing.
Yeah. Now that you start talking timelines, that makes a lot of sense because Raw kind of come on a little bit later, and then there was a move to Raw and how it changed everything. So you amassed 1,000-pound squat, and I heard Jim Wendler come out the other day and he listed off his top 3 squatters. Out of everybody you've seen lift in your career, who do you think is your top 3?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to ask this. I mean, Donnie, Donnie, I would say Hoff, and then probably Ed Cohn.
That's a pretty good list.
Yeah. And I'm talking people I've seen, people I haven't seen, I think you would add, Dr. Hatfield, Fred Hatfield in there. But those three are people I've seen squat, and the weight that they've moved, the way that they've moved it, it's really hard to beat that. There's some really, really special people there.
Now, you created a 2,200 pound total, and that's just unbelievable. Last night I couldn't sleep, so I turned on a table talk, and it was the first one Dave Tate did with Dave Hoff, who is over 3,000. What kind of dedication does it take for a guy to get to that level of powerlifting?
First off, thanks for trivializing my total there by comparing me with Hoff. But
well, whose total doesn't he trivialize? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. No, I mean that's one of those things. I mean, yes, I'm proud of it. It's no secret that I hate deadlifting, and then I've got a poverty deadlift. So for my total to go up, my squat and bench had to go up. And but back then, powerlifting was everything. We would train. And I use the term train loosely. We were at the gym, for 3 and 4 hours. I would drive down on the weekends, like I said, and train with some guys at Bad Attitude Gym in Carrollton, Texas. Sean Donegan, Phil Wiley, again, Jason Coker was in that group. Ray Pierce. I mean, just some really, really outstanding lifters, and that was really, all I did. And then after meeting my wife, I told her, I said, hey, this is something that's going to be a part of, kind of who I am, and you got to be, on board with it. And thankfully she is and was. And, but that last total was right after my first daughter was born, and we were living in Virginia, and I was driving, 50 minutes, one way down to Roanoke to train with a great group of guys at Roanoke Barbell in Virginia. And I mean, it was an all-day deal. I mean, it was get up and leave at 8, get down there by 9. We trained till about 1, go eat lunch. And by the time you come back, it's 3 o'clock, and your whole day is gone. And of course, with the family and just, becoming, I guess, more professional, I guess, might be a better term. It's hard. And, those guys who were in it, those guys who, to me, have that top success, I mean, that is their life, or at least that's their life is structured around that. You know what I mean? And, I mean, it takes tremendous dedication. And, I consider myself a hobbyist, I mean, I still dabble in it, obviously. And the cool thing about that total was that was a multiply squat suit. It was a big single ply bench shirt, and then it was a raw deadlift, and again, I mean, I'm not bragging about those numbers, but even then, I mean, we were in it, but we weren't, what I mean? Like we weren't in it. And, but yeah, for those guys, Donnie, the total 3,000, I mean, powerlifting is Donnie, and, I mean, that's what he dedicated his whole time, lifting, to being the best that he could be from morning to sundown. And that's admirable, man. And that's awesome, and it takes a lot of sacrifice away from other things that other people might view as important or might view as necessary. But to us and to them, I mean, the iron is everything, and lifting the most weight is everything. And, Lou has always said, it's not about lifting, a certain weight. It's about lifting the heaviest weight. And, for those guys to have that dedication, it really is underappreciated. And, I mean, it's special, I mean, it's no different than an NFL player or an NBA player or, soccer, whatever it is. I mean, they devote just as much time and dedication to that as any other professional type athlete. So yeah, I mean, it's just really, really cool. It's really, really cool.
So to take all that experience and everything you did, you have to be a technician to be a powerlifter, and you have to be really good at moving weight. Taking everything you learned from that and bringing it back and adding it to what you understand about working with high school athletes, How has that helped in your career?
I'll say this, and I think I've said this, without powerlifting, I'm not who I am, and I'm not where I am today. Strength development, I owe everything to I guess the quest to being strong. And I'm not saying I'm strong, but that's something that is a big part of me and trying to get there. And understanding that strength is important, but it's not the only thing. Strength is in my opinion, it's the genesis for the other biomotor abilities. I mean, you can't be fast if you're not strong. You can't be flexible if you're not strong. You can't have size if you're not strong. You can't produce power and force if you're not strong. And so understanding that, yes, we need to have a focus on strength, but also the understanding of sport and athletics to know that can't be the only thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so just, developing, I guess my skill set under the bar, I've said this, I don't have a master's degree in bio, whatever, everything that I've learned has been under the bar or been learned from somebody or people. And I take a lot of pride in that, because in a lot of ways I am self-taught in this. And I can't necessarily give you all the scientific background, but I know what works, and that's what we're going to do, So a lot of that comes, from trial and error, and having to problem solve when things either you don't have things or things aren't working, or you have to work around an injury or equipment or whatever it is. It all goes back to powerlifting and just kind of, where I learned how to train and kind of who I am. And I'm rambling at this point, but yeah, man, I just kind of owe a lot to the barbell.
Now, how difficult was it to overcome some of your biases and incorporate a lot of other things? I mean, you're not straight powerlifting anymore with high school kids. You have a wide variety of things you do. How hard was it to bring that stuff in?
No, that's another great question. And 100%, I'm so grateful for my time at VMI. I'm so grateful for that time, because before then, when I was at Midwestern State, I was eat, sleep, breathe, West Side boards, bands, chains. Forget the NSCA. There are a bunch of, dorks and nerds and researchers, and you got to be under the bar and double ply and maximal weights and hardcore, right? And I had a great mentor, have a great mentor in Jay Johnson at VMI, and we would always have these arguments about who would you rather have, a 400-pound cleaner or a 400-pound bench presser? And of course, I picked the 400-pound bench presser, because powerlifting, right? That's, they got strong and that really, I guess, exposed my ignorance. That really exposed my biases and just really my lack of understanding. And I'm so grateful for my time there, because that's really when I realized and when I figured out that, there is, yes, strength is important, but that's only one piece to that athletic development puzzle. And we had a great strength coach on the football side, Phil Sabatini, who was a tremendous Olympic lifter. And Jay and Phil and I wrote an article kind of defending, Phil defended from the Olympic side and I defended from the powerlifting side, athletic development. And, yeah, I am tagged as kind of a powerlifter guy. I am tagged as, being a conjugate West Side guy. And I own that and I'm proud of that. But if you look at my programming, like it couldn't, not to say further from the truth. You can see elements in there if you know what you're looking for, but it's definitely not You're not going to confuse it with a powerlifting workout. You're not going to confuse it with somebody who of its strength like I do. I gave a talk 2013, I think it was at Baylor, and I gave a talk on middle school athletic development. And one of the best compliments I got from that day was one of the coaches came up and she said, "Monty, that was really, really good. I thought you were just going to get up there and talk about how strong your athletes were, but it was really, really nice to see the progressions and the regressions and how much thought you put into your program and not just look at this kid lift this much weight." And we had some really, really strong, like that middle school bunch that I coached that year, those couple of years, we had some freaks in there, man. We really did. And, but it was just cool, because people think I am all about numbers and chasing those things and who can be the strongest. But that's not how we develop athletes. That's not how I develop athletes. We talk about speed. We talk about technique. We talk about intent. I tell them all the time, it's not what we do, it's how we do it. And, I sent something out the other day, Friday was our big squat Friday, and we had 3 different squats, and really we had about 4 different squats going on at one time. And so, understanding that not everybody is built the same way, not every athlete needs the same stimulus. And, that's kind of, the framework of my belief as athlete performance is that we're going to be married to principles, but I'm not married to the box squat. I'm not married to bench press. I'm not married to deadlifts by any means. There's a time and a place for it. But if you look at our program, depending upon the time of year, you may or may not see those things. I mean, I think I've only truly programmed a powerlifting squat maybe twice in the 10 years that I've been doing this, I feel like I program with a conjugate flavor, but that's really, just a layer of it. It's so much more than that.
Now you brought up middle school in there, and I know I've heard you talk about it a little bit before, but may not have got into the depth. Now you lift at high level with high level lifters. You coach Division I, and then you come back to middle school. How big of an adjustment was that, and how were you able to meet those kids where they were?
Oh boy, yeah, those coaches who coached with me and the kids, man. They were some special people to put up with me during that time. Because obviously, there is a big shift in the clientele. I wasn't that far removed from public education, so that wasn't that challenging. But bless those kids and bless those coaches for putting up with me during that time, because there were some really, really good days, but there were some challenging days. But I'll say, we had some really, really good kids during my 2.5 years back at the middle school. And the cool thing that I'm really proud of is, I moved up with those kids. So I coached them in 7th grade, coached them in 8th grade. When they went to the high school, I went to the high school. And the last year they were there, we broke a 32-year playoff drought. Now, was that all me? No, it wasn't all me. But do I feel like I had a part in it? Absolutely. And it was just really, really cool to see those kids from the genesis. I'm talking like 6th grade summer going to 7th grade year all the way through. And, obviously I'm a completely different coach now than what I was back then. And, who wouldn't be after that long a time, but even from their senior year to their 7th grade year, I feel like there was tremendous growth in them, but tremendous growth in me too. And, like I said, it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows, but it was a time that I would never take back. And those kids are now, grown, and some of them are coaching. One of them was in our district this past year, and it's just crazy, that they're that old, and I guess I'm that old now. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, some really, really fun times. Really, really fun times. But I definitely don't want to go back there. I'll say that. I don't want. I'm happy where I am. I don't want to go back to middle school.
Did they help you figure out what sort of intensity you needed to bring to a high school locker room, as opposed to maybe the intensity you were used to training with?
We Friday nights were a lot of fun with those guys, and I think the biggest lesson they taught me maybe was it's okay to have fun. It's okay to be loose. It's okay to not be as serious, because that's how they were and that's who they are. But also when it was time to play, they came to play, and I just think about the games and the successes that we had, and it was just really, 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 really a fun time. Really, really a fun time.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it takes a whole lot for adults to take the fun right out of everything a kid's doing. So learning that line of fun and, having expectations all at the same time has to be a credit to you as a coach to figure that out.
Well, that's really what coaching to me comes down to. If your athletes understand the expectations, if they know the boundaries, if they know this is what coach wants day in and day out, then you can begin to have fun. Then you can begin to not cut loose, but not be as uptight. But you got to have that structure. You got to have that framework on the front end. And sometimes it's hard. And I compare that to where I am now. I've been there. This will be my 7th week starting tomorrow. I'm a different coach coming in than who I was, 6 years ago. And I think it goes back to, understanding that, number one, you got to build relationships, and you can't come in there as a drill sergeant, and you can't come in there, fire and brimstone straight out the gate. You have to communicate, and you got to have grace. Hey, this is the expectation. This is what I expect. But once that's established, then you can begin to let them, be who they are and operate within the confines of your program. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's just establishing what the rules are, and then you can have as much fun as you want inside those rules.
But you can't have fun until you have that structure.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, you just got anarchy.
Right. Yeah. Then no one's in charge.
Now, making the move, you said you've been there 7 weeks. What did you see when you got there that you wanted to adjust, maybe just from what your previous experience was?
That's a great question.
What steps did you take to start implementing your program, I guess?
It's tough in the summertime because you got to understand that in 8 weeks, we're going to be on the field playing. Okay. And so in knowing that, there's a little bit of acceleration that happens within the program. And so, yes, you want to establish your norms. Yes, you want to establish technical boundaries. Yes, you want to establish, operating procedures. But at the end of the day, we got to get them ready to play ball. And so that's what I've tried to do. Right now, it's kind of talking out both sides of your mouth because, yeah, you want to develop strength, but the movement is the most important, in my opinion, at this time. Are you going to have strength adaptations over the summer? Absolutely. Are you going to have power adaptations over the summer? Absolutely. But that cannot be the goal of a summer program for a fall sport. And I'm not just talking football. I'm talking, volleyball, cross country, whatever. we have to get them ready to play their sport. And so that's been the focus of this summer, while building rapport with the coaches, while developing relationships with the athletes, while establishing the standards and integrity of what I think our program needs to look like. And so that's really been the focus, is getting them ready to play, setting the operating procedures, and just kind of setting boundaries, and I'll say this, our coaches and our athletes have done a tremendous job this summer. We had a really, really good day this past Friday. And I mean, our kids are running fast and they're moving weight. And on top of that, they're feeling good. And to me, that's the most important part of the summer, because your best ability is availability. You could be the strongest guy in the world and be standing next to me on the sidelines, and you're not doing anybody any good. And I tell them all the time that was me. I mean, I was a terrible athlete, but the success that I had, very minimal, was because I was strong. If I would have listened to the coaches, tell me, hey, Monty, you get out and run, you get out and run, you get out and run. Would that have made me a better athlete? Maybe, maybe not, but when I coach them, when I speak to them, I'm speaking from a place that I don't want them to be. That's who I am now, because I'm 43 years old, and that's all I can do is I can move a little bit of weight, but I don't want them to be put in the same pigeonhole that I was put in, because all I cared about was how strong I was. And I tell them all the time, unless there's powerlifting across your shirt, strength is not the end all be all. And I've had really, really strong athletes who were great athletes. I've had really, really strong people who weren't great athletes. And then I've had terrible lifters who were Division I athletes. And so that's the other piece to that, right? Is understanding that, again, the goal is to make them the best performer of their sport that they can be. It's not to make them the best lifter they can be. And so you talked about biases earlier, being able to set aside your biases and realize that it's okay if this athlete who can't squat works on squat technique. It's okay. Everybody else is loading the bar at 90%, and they've got a goblet in the corner working on form. That's okay, because guess what? That person's job is not to move that weight up and down. That person's job is to run down the field and catch a ball, or to run down the court and put the ball in the net, or to jump on the court and to hit a ball over a net. And so that to me, I feel like people get that about me, but that's probably something that may surprise people, is that I'm not a number chaser. I'm not a person who glorifies maximal strength in the weight room. I glorify athletic performance. And that encompasses so much more than just a barbell and weights on a bar. So,
and I'm sure it took a little while to see that, but then once you see it, there's no going back.
Well, yeah, I look back to my early high school days and think, man, if we would have changed a couple things in our program, what kind of impact would that have had? Because we glorified strength early on. I mean, we put it at the top, and our kids, I mean, we may have lost the game, but coach, we were stronger than them. Well, okay, that's good. That's good, but it's not a powerlifting meet. We're playing football, and I'm using the football example because that's what I'm talking about, and as coaches, we have to be careful. What do we glorify? What do we put on a pedestal? Again, I think there's a time and a place for everything, but we're coaching athletes, and athletic success has to be elevated. It can't be lessened by a sprint time, a jump time, a max. We have to keep the main thing the main thing.
Now, you guys down there, Texas is always hot this time of year, but you've been fighting some incredible heat. So making sure your players are staying hydrated, getting enough rest, eating enough food, what goes into that so that they're ready for the next day of battling that heat?
I mean, it just sounded like a broken record. You know what I mean? Hydrate, water. We're fortunate that we do have an indoor, turf field that we stay out of the sun, a couple days a week, but on the football side, our head coach wants to be outside as much as we can. And so, we also do that. But going into the season, we'll practice in the morning. And so that will, buffer some of that heat. It's still going to be hot, but we can buffer that by going in the morning. And so that's a big part of it. But just educating them, we've been able to give them some Gatorade products, to try to promote the recovery piece, to try to promote the nutritional piece. And that education will continue as we go into camp and as we go into the season, with football and volleyball and cross country, but that's probably the biggest piece that I feel like is the next frontier for high school athletics. I've been fortunate to be around some great Division I programs. And the biggest difference, in my opinion, is not facilities, not even the level of coaching. It's just the amount of resources being able to be pushed to nutrition, to recovery, to restoration, getting those athletes back and being ready to perform the next day. That, to me, is the next frontier at the high school level. The colleges already acknowledge it, and they're able to address that. But us at the high school level, we just aren't there yet, But I think we'll have some resources from our booster clubs. I think we'll be able to do some things here at Colleyville to give our athletes an edge, and but really it just goes back to education. It goes back to just, sounding like a broken record, get water, hydrate, sleep, and just emphasizing that, and so that's kind of the next progression for us.
And I can see that. I've talked about it on other podcasts with other guests, is the nutrition part of it will become more important as the coaching across the board gets better. Because now everybody has to find a new edge. They have to keep their players top notch. It just seems like a natural gravitation to finding the new way.
Yeah, no, it does. And, it goes back to kind of Tony Holler's Feed the Cats, which I, subscribe to. And it's not always the best athlete that has the most success. It's the most recovered athlete. Going back to what Lou talks about, you can't get a lot stronger the last 3 weeks to the meet, but you can sure get a lot weaker. And so again, realizing those restoration protocols and realizing the restoration cycles and kind of how the body adapts and recovers, that to me is as important, if not more important, than the training itself, because you can train, practice. But if you're beat up at competition, then did you really gain what you wanted to from that week of preparation? It goes back to, if you're going to have a powerlifting max out on Friday, you're not going to max out on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If the track meets on Saturday, you're not going to have a track meet on Wednesday or Thursday. But it's getting coaches to be okay, to getting coaches to have confidence in their preparation, to realize that, hey, we don't have to practice maximally every day to ensure that we're prepared for the next contest. And I think sometimes the reason coaches do that is because there is an insecurity of, well, I'm not 100% sure that we have the right game plan, but we're going to rep it until we can't get it wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And I think, it goes back to, coaches being confident in their preparation and being okay with a less is more approach. Because I'm telling you, teams that are the freshest at their competition, they're the ones that have the most potential, because we're talking about potential. We're not talking about guaranteed success. We're talking about potential to have success at that competition day, whatever sport it is, whatever sport it is.
Now, moving into a little bit different direction, working with kids, you could be an intimidating figure. You're a big guy. You spend a lot of time in a gym. A gym. I'm sure you can talk some crazy smack after being around it your whole life. How do you break down that barrier where kids don't find you just scary, I guess?
It's funny because a lot of kids don't. There's some that do, but there's a lot that don't. But I think it starts with a smile. It starts with just being approachable with the kids, talking to them about things that they know about. Singing their songs. I can sing Katy Perry with the best of them. I think that having two daughters has helped. Because they, they're not, obviously they're not, scared of me. And so I think, when the athletes see me interact with them and, they see that dynamic that it allows for, barriers to be broken down, I guess, but you almost have to be multi-personality when you're dealing with high school athletes, because each sport is going to have their own culture, their own vernacular. I'm not going to talk to the golf team the way I talk to the football team. I'm not going to talk to the soccer team the way I talk to the baseball team. And, just knowing that and being aware, I think goes a long way. But really, it hasn't been that big of an issue, but obviously, inflection, tone, those things, I have to be aware of them. I have to be aware kind of how I stand, because I'm an ugly 300-pound ball guy, and that sixth grade athlete or that seventh grade athlete, may not want to come talk to me, but just, going up to them, hey, how's it going? Did you have a good day? Whenever we have a break, I like to talk about, who had the best breakfast, coming back on the weekend. Hey, anybody do anything fun over the weekend? Just trying to meet them where they are and be vested in them, I think goes a long ways.
Yeah. That could potentially be a hard barrier to break down if you weren't aware of the situation. Kids, right. You're in a position of authority plus everything that goes along with that. I could see how it'd be tough for some kids, especially maybe some that don't necessarily want to be in the weight room to begin with. Now, you've had your chance to coach at the college level, to stay at the college level. What keeps you at the high school level? What makes you show up to a high school every day?
Number one, my wife's not moving. Stability is a big part of it. It is. There is no secret that the college level is very tumultuous. At the college level is very turbulent, and you have to be willing to go where the jobs are. And, I got in the game late, and I'm not a coach whose family is revolved around my coaching. My wife is very successful. She does a great job, and my coaching is not the focus. And so knowing that and understanding, that I'm not going to drag my family, 4 different moves in 5 years, goes into the decisions that I make. And the other piece is, there's not a lot of difference between high school and college. And I would argue that, you can have more of an impact at our level, at the high school level. And we need impactful coaches at this level more so than at college level. College strength coaches, their job is just not to mess them up. I mean, really, especially at the Division I level, you're getting, exceptional athletes. And so their job is just not to mess it up, And, but at the high school level, we have an opportunity to really change the trajectory of some kids' lives. Again, going back to me, had I not found a love for the weight room at 14 years old, I'm not on this podcast today. And something we haven't talked about, but just the lifelong benefits you get from being strong, from understanding, how to safely navigate a weight room. I mean, let's be real. The incident that just happened with the athlete who passed away from squatting. You know what I mean? It is a dangerous hobby, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. And so I guess knowing that that's the impact we can have, knowing that you're on a ground level of an athlete's athletic experience, to me is really, really cool. Being able to watch that freshman who can't walk and tie his shoes at the same time, to then 4 years later, they're either A, going to college on a scholarship, B, doing something else successful, or C, just appreciative that, hey, coach, you taught me how to lift the right way. I've had multiple texts from athletes that, coach, I was in gym XYZ, and oh my gosh, you should, I'm so thankful you taught me how to squat the right way. That's the kind of impact you can make at the high school level that I think is sometimes, trivialized, because we see that the coaches on TV, and I'll be honest, I was enamored with the Division I strength coach, and at one time that would have been really, really cool, but I just think my place is at the high school level. I think that's where I'm called to be. I think it's where I'm supposed to be, and I'm grateful to be here. I do feel like I'm making an impact daily. I do feel like I've changed, kids' lives, and what more can you ask for? So yeah, that's why I'm at the high school level, because I'm not worried about packing up my family, and I get to have a positive impact on kids. That's what it's about.
Now, you touched on it there in that a little bit earlier on. You don't have the opportunity to recruit. You have to train the kids that show up, finding a way to make every kid better so that you can see them succeed, like you talked about in there. Sometimes that takes a little bit more work than what anybody would like to care to admit. So trying to set up the wins for the kids that are a little further behind, getting them up to speed. How much time do you spend figuring out how to make that happen?
Well, I tell people, the great thing about training high school athletes is everything works. The bad thing about training high school athletes is that everything works. And so really it goes back to being married to those principles, being married to, if today's an upper body strength day and bench press might be on the program, but letting the athlete know, hey, look, I don't care if you have a bar, a dumbbell, a plate, a push-up, it doesn't matter. The goal is upper body strength development. How we do that is completely customizable based on the needs of the athlete. But as a coach, you have to be okay with that. As a coach, I have to be okay with, the kid may not be bench pressing 200 pounds, but he just did 5 really, really good push-ups. And that's a win. And celebrate that just like you would the 300-pound bench press. That to me is how you set those athletes who maybe aren't as developmentally along as the others, is you celebrate them just like you do the ones who are, the outliers, and I think you have to have multiple gauges of success. We have strength goals in our program, but we have speed goals and we have jump goals. And so an athlete who may not be the strongest, but maybe they're, a little more springy, and so they can jump and run. And so you celebrate them that way, and the other thing we do is, you celebrate improvement. An athlete may have gone from a 55-pound front squat to a 155-pound front squat. Well, we're going to celebrate that just as much as we will the athlete who front squats 315 or 405. And I hope and I think our athletes understand that it's not about who lifts the most weight. It's about who's doing the right things. It's about who's consistent every day, who's upholding our standard as who we're going to celebrate. And they'll see here in just a little bit that 9 times out of 10, if you're showing up every day, if you're doing what we ask you to do, and you're doing it to the standard that we do it, you're probably going to have success on the field, on the court, on the turf, in the water, 9 times out of 10. But it's a process, and you have to go through and you have to allow that process to work. And sometimes that's the frustrating part, right? Because it takes time. We talk about don't burn the steak. Well, you got to cook the steak on low, and you have to be okay with going to coaches and saying, hey, we're not there yet. We're not ready yet. I mean, we can do this, but understand that there's a consequence. And being comfortable in myself as a coach to understand that, we need to do this way and be able to stand up for what's right for our kids. And, particularly as we go into fall camp with a lot of sports, there might be some tough conversations that need to be had. Hey, coach, we're really just kind of, spinning our wheels right now, or hey, coach, you're feeling really, really good. Let's, you want to run a couple more? Let's run a couple more, but that comes with relationships. That comes with knowing your athletes and just experience, and having confidence in who you are as a coach, so.
Yeah. And once the kids see that what you're about and progression is the name of the game, I'm sure you get a lot more buy-in. And then some of the kids that may have felt a little weaker or a little bit left out, they start finding their niche and where they're good. And then you start seeing the progression from there on, because kids are going to mature so different. The kid that can barely do a push-up now, by the time he's a senior, he may be a beast. You don't know.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Maturity, can be a wonderful thing, and but it's those kids, trusting the process. We talk about that a lot, just Great line from Remember the Titans. It's just like Novocaine, give it time, it always works. And I've seen that for 10 years. I mean, I've seen that now it doesn't mean you're going to be a Division I athlete, but I can't tell you how many athletes who were on JV as a junior, and then you look up at their senior year, now they're all district. It's because they just keep showing up. We talk about, bamboo. You plant bamboo and you wait 4 or 5 years, and then all of a sudden it sprouts up, 60 feet, but you have to keep, tilling the land. You got to keep fertilizing. You got to keep cultivating, because you don't know when the harvest is coming. You don't know when you're going to have to withdraw everything you deposited. Hopefully you've got enough deposits in there that you can then reap the benefits and the rewards of the work that you've done up to that point, and but that takes time.
Now, going into that, I know when we did the bio, we kind of went over some of your credentials, and every coach that comes on, it just has an amazing amount of credentials. So you spent a lot of time in educating yourself on this, and I heard you talk about it on another podcast, and I thought it was pretty cool. The advancement in the weight room has become the equivalent of any other classroom, and getting people to understand that. I mean, that weight room that you run is the same as the science department or the math department or whatever. Do you think as we move on to the future, more stock will be placed in the weight room and their ability to teach that way?
I mean, there has to be. Number one, it's the most dangerous classroom on campus. I've said that. But I think number two, again, what good is having education? What good is creating intelligence if you don't live long enough to really enjoy it? You know what I mean? We're giving athletes, and we're giving students, not just athletes, but even students, lifelong skill sets that they can use from now until they leave this earth. And so why would you not invest in that? Why would you not want to make that part of your school, your athletic department, the best that it can be? And we do a great job in Texas. It's no secret that we have amazing facilities. Our school has amazing facilities. I mean, the weight room that I have is phenomenal, and most of our athletes will never be in a better one, even at the Division I level. I mean, we have tremendous facilities, and so you're seeing that, at least from a big rock perspective, right? From a facilities, from a equipment level perspective. But I think the next evolution is, now let's peel back the layers and let's really begin to dissect how can we make our athletes, unbreakable. I was at a conference yesterday in Austin, and that was one of the slides from Coach Josh, who was at the Vikings. He said, our goal is to make our athletes unbreakable. And to me, that makes perfect sense, because that goes back to, going back to what Luke, weak things break. I've got it in my gym. It's been a mantra of mine ever since I heard it. Weak things break. And so why would we not want to make our athletes the most robust that we can? And just like anything else, give them the best chances to have success. Because the other thing to that, and I was talking to our principal the other day, schools that have good athletic programs, guess what? Their attendance is better. Their test scores are higher. Their culture is more positive. So you can't deny the other residual effects of a successful, athletic program. So yeah, I mean, I think you got to invest in it.
That's an amazing point you just made right there, and I don't think it gets maybe enough credit. that as across, now Texas is totally different than the rest of the country. We both understand that. Not under any illusions that Texas isn't just pushing the envelope a little further down there than some of the other states. But a lot of the other states were starting to see a decline in athletics. Some of it through coaching, some of it through athletics, some of it through funding, whatever the case may be. But that you just touched on that, how important a coach is, and getting those kids out, getting those kids active, and what it can do for the overall aspect of the school is underlooked, I think.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm not here today without Coach Higgs. Period. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't an English teacher. It wasn't a math teacher. It wasn't a science teacher. It was Coach Higgs. So,
and everybody has that teacher or coach in their life that opens the world up to them a little bit more. So I guess in saying that, football is a piece of the weight room, and the weight room was always central to football until the last few years. Now it's opened up. So the weight room is not totally relying on football anymore. You have so many sports down there that you're working with, expanding your knowledge and your ability to work with athletes into all levels. How much time has that taken?
It's taken up to this point. I'll say this, I think generally the high school athlete, no matter the sport, needs the same thing. They need to get a little bit stronger, get a little bit faster, and move a little bit better. And so it's not as difficult as you think, or as some people in the private sector want to make you think it is, to enhance that performance. And, I've said this, my programming isn't sexy. It's not flashy. It's kind of boring, But again, we're trying to enhance those three things. Move a little better, a little bit stronger, and get them a little bit faster. It's up to the sport coach to then take that more resilient athlete and make them a better athlete. I'm not going to make you a better football player. I'm not going to make you a better soccer player. I'm not going to make you a better volleyball player. But if you go through our program, you will have the potential to have more success in that sport. But that's up to the sport coach. Because yes, I've coached football and I've done it, for many years, and I played, I know how to coach. Can I coach baseball? Probably not. I played soccer for a long time. I could coach soccer, Give me a little bit of time in volleyball, I could probably be a heck of a volleyball coach, But that's not what I do. And I'm not going to tell those coaches what to do in their games. I'm not out there calling plays on Friday nights. You know what I mean? I'm not out there calling pitches, in softball or baseball. Because that's not my realm. But it's important that we understand that, if we can do X, Y, Z just a little bit better, then it's going to make A, B, and C better. That's really what it comes down to. But I think sometimes, whether it's because we have to justify our position or we have to justify our value, that coaches make it bigger than what it is. You know what I mean? But it's really not that difficult. But the cool thing about, going back to, I guess, circling back, I've got a lot of background in football, but I've got a lot of background in baseball. I've got a lot of background in volleyball, and it's just being willing to put your stuff out there and to talk to people who were in those realms. I've got Division I volleyball strength coaches who I can call and ask, hey, what about this? Or what about that? We're fortunate. We've got, Zach Dakin, who, is at TCU, who's very popular in the baseball world. I've connected with him, it's just being intentional with not focusing on just, because it's real easy to just be a football guy, right? Like, it's super easy to just, hey, I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to spend my time on this. but that's really not what it's about. I want to help every athlete. And so, you have to seek out those opportunities and be intentional about it, and so that's, again, it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 43 years, in the making, and every day, I try to learn something. I mean, it sounds, cliche, but I'm always looking, whether it's golf or whether it's tennis or, I'm always trying to pick something up because it's real easy for me, I'm a walking, I'm bald, I'm big, I'm bearded, I work with football, I'm a power lifter. I mean, it's real easy to pigeonhole me that way, but that's only one facet of who I am as a coach. I mean, I mean, tennis players, swimmers, soccer players. I mean, just put me in a room with athletes, and there's a good chance that we're going to have success. I mean, I truly believe that.
Now, when I was researching all this, and I know you spent quite a bit of your time this evening, and you got a busy schedule, so I'll kind of wrap up with this and let you have your evening. But Elite FTS, you wrote an article about game day training using the West Side Dynamic effort. Is that still something you're pushing towards, that you like to get your guys in and get them moving weight fast and getting them ready for the game?
Game day lifting, I'm glad you asked this question, because it's something that I think can be a weapon. It's something that I think can be really, really valuable to a sport program. But you got to know how to use it. And you got to understand that there are different types of game day lifting. There's the game day lift where maybe it's a little more strength focused because you train in the morning and you don't play until the afternoon. The game day lift for baseball might look different than it does for football. It might look different than it does for volleyball. Ours, when I wrote that article, we kind of transitioned from, we used to lift in the middle of the day because that's when our athletic period was. And so we lifted at 11 o'clock, and we would play at, 7 or whatever. And that was good, but the game day lift, it's, at that time, it's fun, man. I mean, the radio's cranked up, we're hooping and hollering. I mean, it's high energy. And so you get those kids all ramped up, and then they got to go back to class. And so then it's like, well, then they got to come back down, and then they come back out to the field house. I'm talking football because that's where it started. Mm-hmm. And then they got to get ramped up again to go play football. And so I talked to the head coach. I said, hey, look, what if we came in and we had our pregame meal? Because that was the cool thing is, he fed everybody. We ate, and then we did our lift, we got on a bus, and then went to the stadium. Because that way now it's kind of a slow ramp up, and it's a part of our pregame routine. We talk about getting your mind right, getting locked in, getting focused, And I think making that switch was one of the best things that we did with our game day lifting program, because it really was, it was our identity. We went, and it wasn't, a lot of it was dynamic based, but we were hitting PR vertical jumps. Kids were hitting PR cleans. And I'm talking not like, 135. I'm talking like 275, 300-pound cleans. And you're telling me that kid smoking that clean doesn't give him confidence to go out on Friday night? The kid hitting a vertical PR going out on Friday night after knowing, hey, man, I just freaking jumped a big PR. Are you kidding me? And so that became a part of just our routine, and it was the norm. And it wasn't, oh man, we got to lift now. It was turn the music up. Let's get excited. And there's no coaching at that point. You know what I mean? Like the kids knew what to do. We had it on TV, but there's no coaching. You're high-fiving kids and you're dancing, and you're being energetic, and just making that positive experience for them. And then you carry that onto the field. and I mean, it was just really, really good. And I don't know who, I was talking with somebody the other day, and just, sometimes kids have anxiety, I was that guy. I would throw up before every high school game. Now, college, it didn't matter because I didn't play. So, I didn't stand on the sideline, so I had to worry about it. But in high school, man, I was that guy who was in it. I mean, violently throwing up before we went and play. And so you think about, the conversation was about routines. And you think about giving your athletes a routine. You think about giving them a structure to where they're not necessarily thinking about, hey, we're playing a game at 7:00, but hey, we're going to have fun. We're going to get crunk. We're going to, blow it out in here. And the endorphins and the physiology that goes on in the brain, now they're on a high. So, I mean, it's a win-win, because then we go from there. It just carries over to the field, and it just, I don't know, man. It makes too much sense. And whether it's football or whether it's basketball, whether it's volleyball, I mean, having some type of activation-based pregame experience, I think can go a really, really long way. And we were able to do it a couple different times with volleyball, but it's something that, I mean, it's different. And it takes coaches out of their comfort zone. It takes athletes out of their comfort zone, but I think if you introduce it the right way, and I think if you program it the right way, that both the athletes and the coaches are going to see value in it, and it's going to become a part of what you do, but you have to do it the right way. You know what I mean? Like, my volleyballers aren't going to go in and hit heavy cleans before they go play volleyball. Now, can they go in and do some trap bar and do some band assisted jump and, maybe some single leg work? Absolutely. And feel good and go play? Absolutely. So each sport's going to have a little bit different nuance, but I just think there's too many benefits to not at least give it a shot and, see what happens, So yeah, to answer your question, yes, it's something that I'm advocating, but it's one of those things that is radical. And so, you have to, it takes time, it takes time, but hopefully we get there, because again, it's, I mean, obviously I wrote an article about it, but it was a big part of what we did, 2 schools ago, and they still do it to this day, and they have success. And I just can't speak highly enough about, doing those types of things, pregame before you go play.
When I found the article, I mean, I thought it was an exceptional article. It's just a new way of thinking about things. You watch, maybe a lot of teams spend a lot of time in a slow warm up, and then when they take the field, then all the energy hits. Where if you've already built the energy, taking the field there is no build up. They're just ready to go. So I thought the article was really good.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you're going on another tangent about then how do you prepare from a warm up standpoint for the game? Because a lot of times teams warm up too much, and GPS, is out now, and you can see that a lot of times teams are going through a whole practice volume before you go play a game. And it's like, what are you doing? But that's a different conversation, but yeah, man, I just, like I said, it makes too much sense to me. And the benefits definitely outweigh the risks, and, hopefully we get there quicker rather than later, because I think it's, again, I mean, I think it's a weapon. I mean, I think it's a weapon, so anyways.
Well, man, I appreciate the time. The next time you're up in Kansas City, let me know. We'll go get some Kansas City Joe barbecue or something like that. I'm sure you'd enjoy having some barbecue.
I'm not going to turn down barbecue ever, but yeah, man, I mean, I love that. And if you're ever down this way, steaks are on me, but no, this is really, really fun. Hopefully, it adds value to your program, and hopefully the listeners have been able to gain something from hearing me ramble for the past hour or so.
I'm sure they have. It's been a great conversation. You answered the questions just amazingly. Full, in-depth, non-disclosure. Everything was really good, and I appreciate your time.
Well, what you see with me is what you get. I mean, I don't pull any punches, and I don't sugarcoat things. And that's just something that I believe in. And yeah,
Well,
awesome,
thank you,
man. Really, really good.
Thank you again, and have a great evening.
Awesome. Thank you.